What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the January 17th, 2022 edition of Raw Talk. Being hosted in the studio, per usual, by Jackie Redmond, Matt Camp. Special guest host this week was Peter Rosenberg, adding his analysis, quote-unquote, to what they were talking about throughout the show. So they opened the show by recapping the end of the show, that being Raw, that saw Bobby Lashley take on Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley get attacked by the Hurt Business, the Usos attack Seth Rollins, chaos to close out Monday Night Raw last night. They also recapped Austin Theory beating Finn Balor in clean fashion before moving on to the graduation ceremony with Chad Gable, Otis, the new Raw Tag Team Champions, Alpha Academy, being interrupted and having that crashed by RK Bro to set up next week's academic challenge between the two teams. We hear from Riddle backstage at Raw with Kevin Patrick. Riddle says that he's only ever been to one graduation, and his whole plan with the graduation ceremony on Monday's Raw was that he wanted to go undercover, he said, like in 22 Jump Street, and pretend to be a student or a part of it or something. I don't know if that was what he ended up going with by wearing the cap and gown out to the ring on Monday night. But Orton, I guess, told him when he told him that plan, Orton said, listen, just go read a book. And when Kevin says, how do you prepare for something like this, with that being the academic challenge next week on Raw, Riddle says, you can't. You can't study for a test like this. I just got to go into it being prepared for anything. Back in the studio, Matt Camp says that you got to watch out for business ethics, which was a great nod to Billy Madison, which they referenced twice. They referenced in the actual segment, and I think they mentioned that here on Raw Talk as well. Billy Madison is a great fucking movie, and that academic, well, I forgot the exact term for what they call it. The exact that part of the movie where they have the academic challenge. There's a certain word for it, like decathlon or whatever the hell it's called. That's at the very end of the movie, and he referenced that here, which was great. If you've seen the movie, you get it. If you haven't, probably not. They also recapped the Becky Lynch and Doudrop versus Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair tag team match that saw Becky and Doudrop pick up the win after Doudrop planted Liv Morgan and also planted Becky Lynch afterward as well. Rosenberg references the fact that Doudrop, and they also reference it here too, which I'm glad, and I'm sure this was a legit botch, that Doudrop went for the pin after squashing Liv the first time, and she wasn't the legal woman, so she had to drag Becky over to the corner, tag her in, squash Liv again, and then pick up the victory. I'm sure that was a legit botch. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, Peter Rosenberg says that people make mistakes and that Doudrop's been a different person in the last 2 months, which I agree with. The name is still stupid, but she has altered her demeanor, become more aggressive and intense in the ring, and obviously the Piper Niven inside the ring is excellent. Doudrop as a character is a bit questionable, but she has been a lot better since turning heel late last year. And he actually hopes that Doudrop shows up in the Rumble. I would say I'm not sure how that works if she wins the Raw Women's Championship, which we all know that she won't. But then again, Charlotte is the current SmackDown Women's Champion, and she's going to be in the Rumble. So I guess it really doesn't exactly matter, now does it? Either way, Rosenberg calls Doudrop potentially the most exciting new star in that women's division. They then recap Rhea Ripley and Nikki A.S.H, their segment. I don't want to call it a match because the match never got started, but Nikki and Rhea being interrupted by Carmella and Zelina for some reason. I'm not sure why they had to make their presence felt on Monday night, but Nikki attacked Ripley. No match. That was the end of it. We hear from Ripley backstage at Raw. Ripley says that she's given Nikki a lot of chances. There's a lot of things that she wanted to do, a lot of things she wanted to say, but she didn't do it. And she can only take so much after giving Nikki so many chances. Her accomplishments have built up from becoming the NXT UK Women's Champion, first ever, NXT Women's Champion, Raw Women's Champion, and WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. But come the Royal Rumble, she's going to obliterate Nikki and anyone else who steps up to her in that match that'll get in her way of returning to WrestleMania and contending for that Raw Women's Championship. Matt Camp says that Ripley just needs to get in the ring and beat people up. She's got to reestablish herself as a real contender on that show. They replayed Omos versus Reggie, where Omos completely squashed Reggie. Matt Camp thinks that Omos could have an all-time dominant Royal Rumble performance in the Men's Rumble this year. And God, I fucking hope not. I'm not sure if Omos has been declared for the Rumble yet or has declared himself for the Rumble. I'm sure he's going to be in it either way. I really do not want to see that. I do not want to see Omos go on like a Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Diesel type tear in the Rumble. No thanks, he's just not good at all. I'm sorry, I like Omos, but he's just not that good. We actually hear from him here. He says he doesn't get distracted. He laughed off one of Sarah's original questions. And then for the second question, he says, she talked about how, does Dana Brooke or all the other stuff going on Raw right now distract you? He says he doesn't get distracted, and all of his opponents going forward will end up like Reggie if they dare to step up to him. So they kept it short and sweet here. Omos is not a great talker. He's not a great wrestler. He seems like the nicest guy behind the scenes, but as far as an on-air performer, it's just not working, pal. It's not working. So hopefully they don't give him a dominant performance in the Rumble, because I feel like that'd be such a waste. To build up, Bobby Lashley versus Omos for Mania? Again, no thanks. Back in the studio, they hype up Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at the Rumble, before Peter Rosenberg talks about how the last 2 years for Bobby Lashley have been incredibly dominant, because they're also talking about the WWE Championship match as well with Bobby and Brock. Matt Camp says that Bobby knows he's in for a fight, and he's getting the fight that he's dreamed of for a very long time. Matt Camp himself expects it to be a knockdown, drag-out brawl. I fucking hope so, not a 2-minute squash, because that would be terrible. And they also question why Rollins is concerned. Rollins mentioned Brock and Bobby in his KO talk show segment earlier on in the show. Why does he care so much about that match when he has business to deal with at the Rumble and Roman Reigns? Matt Camp says that Roman knows a lot of his history with Rollins, as far as, he knows that Rollins has beaten him in various championship matches, but that's not going to stop Roman from going in there, pummeling Rollins at the Rumble, and retaining his Universal Championship. Peter Rosenberg says a lot like the Cowboys, and Roman Reigns is not the Cowboys. He emphasizes that because I feel like that'd be an insult coming off that game this past weekend. Rosenberg says that the only person that could beat Roman Reigns is Roman Reigns, and until that happens, he will remain champion. And he says he can't lose if he stays focused, which I agree with, from a character standpoint, of course. And they also hype up next week's weigh-in on Raw between Brock and Bobby, which sounds fucking awesome, and hopefully there we get the verbal sparring between MVP and Paul Heyman. I feel like that's got to be coming next week. So yeah, that was Raw Talk in a nutshell for Monday night. Nothing really worth going out of your way to see, which is typically the case with this show. Solid stuff, though. We got to hear from Omos, we heard from Riddle, we heard from Rhea Ripley as well, so a decent list of guests there. Again, kind of a standard show. Given this current format for Raw Talk, it kind of is what it is. But they recapped Raw effectively, was what it was. I know personally I'm hyped for the Rumble, with them talking about the Women's Rumble, the Men's Rumble, the 2 title matches, the 2 top title matches, and even Becky and Doudrop I'm looking forward to as well. So I'm looking forward to the pay-per-view, and again, that was Raw Talk in a nutshell for January 17th, 2022. Thank you guys for checking out the review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. Have a great rest of your week, folks. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.